one of the topics I think is quite relevant is to understand the notion of contempt. Contempt is incredibly important. Contempt is one of the 7 universal emotions that we learned from the likes of Paul Ekman. So with the different emotions, we know the 5 unpleasant ones, 1 pleasant one, and 1 neutral one. The pleasant one that we... Oops, get the right color. The pleasant one that we know of is... Sorry. Here we go, right color. The pleasant one that we know of is joy. The neutral one we know of is surprise. Each of these, of course, have a function, and I suggest you look up the Atlas of Emotions to learn more. So joy, surprise. Then we have fear that we all know. Anger, of course, very important to help us protect ourselves, to help us overcome obstacles. It's a beautiful emotion, it means we care about things. Then we have sadness. Sadness is also absolutely beautiful. Funnily enough, with these different emotions, there are 3 of them so far that are unpleasant, a neutral one, and a pleasant one. None of these emotions indicate the end of a relationship. There's a psychologist who was able to, by watching videos, he was able to see within, I think it was less than a minute, by looking at micro-expressions, which couples would end shortly after and which ones would survive. And it was none of these emotions. The 2 emotions that he looked for were disgust, and the last one was contempt. If you're seeing either disgust or contempt on your partner's face, you know it's over. Or you've got a very small window to try to save something. But these are emotions we see quite a bit with narcissists. And if they were to tell their partners and other people what they think of them, really often we'd be seeing contempt and disgust come out. Those are horrible emotions, especially when you see it in the face of someone we care about, or someone we respect, or someone we want to have a relationship with. Instinctively, we know it's the end of the relationship. Now, it is quite interesting with narcissists because you can't escape this. You can't escape these emotions. And I actually thought about this. I watched a clip of the TV show House with Hugh Laurie. I'm sure you all know the TV show. I never watched it, so it was a surprise. And there was a scene where there was a woman who was a psychopath, and they found out that it was because of some kind of chemical imbalance. And when she got clear-minded, thanks to the chelation that was removing the toxins from the body, she looked at her husband and basically looked at him with contempt and disgust and said something along the lines of, "You're pathetic. You know I've cheated on you. You know I've lied to you. You know I've done it multiple times, and you're still here. Like, if you respect yourself, you should get out of here." And, of course, he was in utter shock. He left. He ran away. But I think it's really key to think of this is, with toxic people, we're stuck in toxic dynamics. Now, if we were to take a step back, remove the toxic dynamic, and just, instead of toxic dynamic, we just think, how would somebody view this from the outside? How would someone perceive the way that we act in these dynamics? Would there be care, respect, dignity? Or is there a risk there would either be pity, which is a terrible, terrible emotion to feel. When there's pity, there's not very much respect. We can feel it for children, so people well below us. But would there be pity? Would there be contempt? If an adult is acting like a child, it's pitiful, it's sad, and maybe they are worthy of contempt. Maybe they can't do any better, but it's not something to aspire to be weak, to be pathetic, to be taken advantage of. It's not great. Of course, stuck in the situation, it's perfectly understandable that we let it happen because we're getting gaslit and manipulated by master manipulators, and we're getting completely duped. But that's where it's interesting to take a step back from the situation and assess, well, if I looked at this from the outside, what would I feel? And what would people feel? And if the person stopped playing these toxic games and was just an honest person, what would they say? So maybe we're looking for some reassurance, but maybe the healthy thing would be for someone to go, hey, wait a minute, wake up. Why are you letting this person behave this way towards you? Why are you allowing this to happen? Like, what is going on? If you see me walking down the street and someone walks up to me, starts headbutting me, taking my money, peeing on my shoes, and calling me and my loved ones all names, and I just sit there and I go, you probably wouldn't respect me. You'd think, hey, there's something, you have to do something about this. Why are you not willing to defend the basics of dignity? Like, what's going on there? Of course, as we know, again, we have these dynamics, and with these dynamics, it's really difficult because we're getting manipulated, gaslit. We might feel shame, blame, all of these things. That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is saying, pause, take a step back. What is happening? And if when we take a step back and we see what's happening, we feel some level of contempt, or we think that the person so if we remove sort of the explanation, or we think, how would someone with a toxic mindset view it? Chances are they'd view it with contempt. And often that's what they'll say when you start digging a little bit is, you allowed me to do this to you. I remember this toxic woman that I mentioned sometimes, talking about former dynamics. She was saying, you allowed me to do this to you because you were okay with it, you agreed with it. And I was in shock when she mentioned this, because to me the whole thing was a nightmare. It was absolutely what I did not want. But she rewrote the narrative of, you're okay with it. You're okay with me hurting you and harming you and humiliating you and creating this drama. It worked out for you. It's cynical. But if this is what they think, when there's toxic dynamics happening, you can take a step back and think, well, if I'm not getting caught up in the noise coming out of their mouth, and I understand how they think, I know they're watching me with contempt. And contempt really is, there's something against the values. Contempt is the end of the relationship. Same way as disgust. Both of them end of relationship. Now, a tangent point with this is often a question, why is it when we break up with a toxic person that they are so angry? Because you sometimes just move on, or you're angry for a bit and you move on. Now, I'd like to frame this in a way that I think can be quite helpful. We know that many toxic people would actually claim that they are 1 in a million. They'd say it, they're exceptional, they're special. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the total population of the world is something like 8 billion, right? 1 in a million would therefore mean that they are part of the top 8,000 people in the world. Divide this between men and women, they're part of the top 4,000 people in the world. Okay, top 4,000. So if they're part of the top 4,000 and they feel like they are doing you a favor by being in a relationship with you, and you should be grateful because they, after all, are in the top, 4,000 people in the world. Of course, we agree. It's completely absurd, the whole notion of being in the top whatever, because what criteria doesn't even make sense rationally. But let's just follow it. If they're in the top 4,000 and they're dating you, you should be begging them to stay. You should be so grateful that they even want to breathe the same air as you. And instead of being grateful, you're just saying, well, I'm out of here. If this is the case, how does that match with being one of the top 4,000? If they are the top 4,000, you can't leave. If you do leave, then, well, they can't be one of the top 4,000. But they are one of the top 4,000, therefore you can't leave. But you did leave. But if you did leave, they can't be one of the top 4,000. But they are one of the top 4,000. So you shouldn't leave, but you left. So reality doesn't match the expectations. Let's remember the point. I think we've seen it before. There's reality. And there is, does it manage expectations? And for them, reality should manage expectations. And for them, if reality doesn't meet the expectations, the problem is reality. normal human beings would go, well, the problem must be my expectations. If I expect it won't rain and I go out and I get soaked, then clearly I got something wrong because the rain doesn't care about me. But for these morons, they're really thinking the problem is reality. Because I am 1 in a million, because I am in the top 4,000, therefore you can't leave. But you did leave. Therefore, and this is where there's anger. Remember, by the way, anger is when, in this case, there's them. They have a goal. There we go, goal. And here you have an obstacle. Anger is what allows you to overcome the obstacle or remove the obstacle to get the goal. Their goal is to prove to themselves and everyone else that they are, in the top 4,000 of the world. And therefore, reality, in other words, you leaving or you having healthy boundaries or you having self-respect or you not tolerating them despising you and being showing contempt towards you, that is the obstacle. Therefore, if they can destroy the obstacle, they reach their goal. But of course, the more they try, in principle, the further away you go. So it's a vicious circle that goes round and round. It's why it can never work out. They have conflicting goals. Their behavior drives people away. But people shouldn't go away because they're supposed to be 1 in 4,000. But people go away, so the problem must be the people. So if the problem is the people, they can try to destroy the people or get revenge or just be, okay, you are the problem because you went away, therefore I want you to feel my pain. Whereas a normal person just go, well, okay, misunderstandings, whatever. And the worst thing is in this case, it's this crazy thing. In this case, the people they drive away are the people who are pretty much willing to give them absolutely anything. But at one point, there's a straw that breaks the camel's back. And, so it sounds completely absurd. And on the face of it, it makes absolutely no sense. However, if you accept the premise that they believe that they are in the top 4,000, then everything else falls into place. But this also explains why they get so angry at reality, like raging with a fist at the sky because the rain is raining and it shouldn't be raining and so on. This is simply, it goes along with the theory of the perpetual cognitive dissonance. They have expectations of expectations of reality. Reality never matches the expectations, so the problem must be reality. Anytime you see people who want to change reality, consider this. Do they have an accurate vision of what reality is? And they go, well, based on this, I put together a tangible plan to improve it. Or are they saying, I don't accept the way reality is, something must change? Accepting, this is one of the words a lot of people don't understand, and narcissists don't understand. Accepting means taking a snapshot that is accurate. And then we can do something. It doesn't mean take a snapshot and do nothing. No. Take a snapshot that's accurate, agree on what's accurate, and then decide to do something. When people struggle with this, like, you got a bit of a problem, or they've got a bit of a problem. By the way, hi everyone, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining. Sorry for the long delay in videos. I've been very busy, and I tend to do these when I'm in a quiet place, when I have a bit of inspiration, and I'm not too tired. So good to see you tonight. That was one point. Now, okay, next point I'd like to share with you, which is that, and by the way, as usual, anytime you have questions, just let me know in the chat. I'd be very happy to take those. The next point is that staying with a toxic person is ruining your life. And I'd like to make the case about this. When I was traveling recently in Italy, there was, you might have seen a short, there was a preparation for the Spring Festival. And I've been feeling really quite emotional about a number of these festivals. I didn't used to think too much about it, but years go by, my hair's getting grey, and the people around me are also, of course, getting older until the new people come, which is lovely. But time goes by, and every year there's some kind of festival which marks the passing of time. There's a book, by the way, that I recommend you look at that's called 4,000 Weeks that considers this. The idea is roughly, if we live until 80, we have about 4,000 weeks on this earth. We understand the notion of weeks. A month is a bit weird. A year seems like a long time, but a week we understand. Now, imagine that you are, let's say, 40 years old. That means that you only have another maybe 40 springs ahead of you. That's precious. I've done a few videos about this, about the passing of time, how precious it is. You got another 40 springs ahead of you, and you can look back to the springs that you've had, and each spring is a bit different. When you start smelling spring, the flowers, when you hear the birds come back and sing again, when the grass grows again, it's a very special time. And summers, well, we only have a limited number of summers left, and it can skip a week or two, but overall, every summer is very important, and we don't know how many we have left. Now, one of the other things I was thinking about is spring's a special time, Christmas is a special time, trips are meant to be special. What happens when you end a relationship with let's say, a normal person, someone where you tried, things didn't quite work out, through nobody's fault, it just didn't really work out. In these cases, you possibly will be willing to look back at the relationship, but in principle, if you want to move forward, you don't spend too much time dwelling on the past. You're you think back to experiences you had with your current partner, probably not too much previous partners, but you could if you wanted to. But what happens when those experiences are shared with someone who's toxic? Those probably are memories you want erased from your life. And even if you think back to them, they're not such good memories, because there probably was a fight, because there probably was tension, because probably it wasn't the best time of your life, because it's just not good memories. So, looking forward, imagine you're 40. And I know some of you are a bit older than 40, and a few of you are a little bit younger, so make the most of it. Imagine you're 40, you've got another 40 springs, and you look back and your first springs as sort of an adult started maybe 20 years ago. And instead of looking back and having 20 springs of nice memories, of Easters, and things you can share with, you look back, you go, I don't remember much of it. And the bits I remember, I don't really want to remember because of the toxic people who were there. That's wasting. That's wasting life. And life changes as we get older. You can see it. Your 20s don't feel the same as your 30s, or your 40s, or your 50s. So each decade is really precious. Who is the right person to share this with, and who is the person with whom you can build something? Now, of course, we can't go back and change the past. However, if you're in the situation, you can consider, let's say you're 47, you've been with a toxic person for a long time, you don't imagine it getting better because there's no credible reason why it would get better. You can think, how many more of these springs do I want to spend with this person before I've had enough? I can't answer the question. I don't know your circumstances. However, this kind of question is quite important because time is precious. And seasonality is pretty important. So that was a thought I wanted to share. Just remember, removing memories we have from life because we shared them with the wrong person, that's maybe not ideal. Maybe not ideal. Now, next point. I was talking with someone with a client about toxic situations. And as usual, it's not self-evident to know how to move forward. It's not self-evident to know how to unblock situations and how to set things straight. So one of the questions I asked, which is simply, what are you afraid of? Here we go. What are you afraid of? When you think, or if you're struggling to move forward after a toxic relationship, or trying to get out of one, just ask yourself, we're going to break this down to steps. Ask yourself the question, what is it I'm afraid of? What is it I'm afraid of if I re-examine this relationship? It can be many different things. No judgment, simply, and not going into the emotion, just simply looking at the emotion. Maybe I'm afraid of accepting I made a mistake. Maybe I'm afraid of accepting I made a mistake despite the fact that I shouldn't have made a mistake. Maybe I'm afraid of being angry at myself. Maybe I'm afraid of accepting the time that I lost. Maybe I'm afraid of beating myself up. Maybe I'm afraid of the shame. Maybe I'm afraid of the guilt. There are plenty of things we can be afraid of. Maybe I'm afraid of the pain. Simply observing what is it I'm afraid of helps reduce the fear. There's a reason for this. Fear is linked to uncertainty. If it's uncertain, maybe it's bad. That's one of the reasons why if you go to the doctor as a child and you need an injection and you ask, does it hurt? And they say, no, it doesn't hurt. But then it hurts. You learn, can't trust doctors, and that was bloody painful. If you ask them, will it hurt? And they say, yes, it's going to hurt. The pain from 0 to 10 will be probably a 7, and it will last for about a quarter of a second, and then you won't feel anything. If you get this information, your fear goes down. Can you deal with 7 out of 10 of pain for a quarter of a second? Of course you can. Then it's fine. As long as we reduce uncertainty, fear goes down. So what are you afraid of? I suggest if you're struggling to move forward at any point, write this down. Just ask yourself the question, what am I afraid of? And write down the answer. Once you have the answer, you can then ask simply, well, what can I do about that? How can I go further? Basically, what can I do about this? That, in principle, should help you reduce the fear. And once you reduce the fear, it might be a bit easier to move forward. Let me check quickly the comments here. Okay. Don't you go to festivals? No, I like festivals. I will go to festivals. They're great. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Met at 44, 46. Yeah. 34. Pete, there'll be more than 34. But, it's the idea. But make sure they're 34 and more than 34. Cool. Nice to see you guys talking, by the way. Now, before I do this, here's another question. When you are dealing with someone, if you're stuck in a toxic relationship, or if you're not certain about different people, ask yourself this question, just how good a judge of character you are. Because, there we go. Wait, that doesn't make anything. Good judge of character. Here we go. So we'll ask the question both for you and for the other person. So, I use narcissist as shorthand for the other person who might be showing toxic symptoms. And rate this from 0 to 3. Now, some of us have blind spots. We're not very good judges of characters, or we've got a pattern of being a bad judge of character or getting duped. If we have a pattern and we know that we get duped on a regular basis, then maybe it's just good to think, I'd score myself rather low, 0, 1 or something. Which means if someone seems amazing, take a step back, have a breathe and think, I know I'm not the best judge of character, so let me see how I can check. Like my gut feeling gets hijacked, doesn't always work. And now when we're dealing with someone else who we know is toxic, just ask the question. Now, let me put this differently. Many years ago, about, I'm guessing it was 10 years ago or so, I traveled to Prague, and in Prague I met an old friend. We can call her, let's call her Anna. Anna, as a Czech woman, some years before, Anna had come to visit me, and she came for a conference and stayed for like two or three extra days. So Anna was a friend, known her for a long time, stayed in my guest room, very friendly, just nothing strange, ambiguous. And she came, she worked all day, and then in the evening she had to help her boyfriend, who'd then become her husband, with the translation because he was late, because he was a translator, and he was missing the deadline. It was a catastrophe, and so she barely slept. Okay. Then we had one day, I was able to take her someplace, and she slept pretty much all the time. So it was a bit of a nightmare. So anyway, that was some years before. Go back 10 years, I see her in Prague, ask how she's doing, and she goes, well, I'm divorced now. And she described, I didn't know much about it then, but she described pretty much an abusive relationship. Yeah, you get the pattern, you get the idea. With a person who was sabotaging her trip with this translation problem. Like, he didn't care if he lost the client, but they were depending on both of them getting salaries. So she was doing her job plus his job, and he was sabotaging everything. You get exactly the idea. But she always had this lingering doubt, which was, he criticizes me, but maybe I'm wrong. He criticizes me, maybe I've done the wrong thing, maybe I caused something, maybe, always the same maybe. So I just asked her, I said, Anna, just imagine that we meet up for dinner, and I'm looking pretty down. And you ask me what's wrong. And, oops, something seems to, okay. Oh no, it's all right. You ask me what's wrong. And I tell you, I was in a cafe, and I sat next to this chap, and we started talking. And he told me some harsh things about me. He told me that he thought I was slow, stupid, an idiot, arrogant. And you really knocked down my confidence. And then I told you his name, and his name was David. The name of her husband. What would you tell me? And she just started laughing. And again, would you tell me, listen, he's a very smart person. He's really an astute judge of character. He's very good at understanding people. He weighs his words. He is nuanced. He's constructive. He wants the best for people. So if he says something, to pay attention, because it's probably in your best interest and probably be really helpful and constructive and help you lead a better life. And she laughed and she goes, no, I tell you, don't listen to that idiot. Okay, fair enough. So, Anna, I asked her, if I shouldn't listen to him, why do you listen to him? Why would you apply different standards for me and for yourself? If he's not good enough for me, why is he good enough for you? What is it that's so special about you where he'd have understood you well, but he wouldn't have understood me? You can't have it both ways. Either he's a great judge of character, and if somebody said, Anna, my couple isn't working out, I need to go and talk to someone, you would say, go and talk to David. David's great. He's amazing. He should be a psychologist. He's incredible. If you wouldn't do that, why are you talking to him? And no, she said, yeah, you have a point. You got a point. I don't know why I do it. Of course, we understand why we do it, because we need the relationship with the person, because they count to us, we want to make a good impression, and so on and so forth, and it makes no sense. If we would not send someone else to talk to them, then maybe when we try to assess how good a judge of character they are, maybe we should not suggests that they're a 3 out of 10, but maybe they're closer to 0. And if they're closer to 0, maybe we shouldn't listen to them. Maybe, largely when it comes to ourselves, the person we should listen to is ourself and check with people whom we trust. And if someone disagrees, not assume, well, maybe they know something we don't. Always remember, they are not judges. They always want to play judge. They're not judges. So, yeah, that's something to consider. Daredevil, so you say that. Okay, let's take this. Cool, because it's live stream, let's make the most of it. Maybe you are the problem. Let's have a look at this. Daredevil, that's you. And this is the other person. So let's just map this out. We have a series of probabilities. We have the probability that you are 100% the problem, and the other person is 0% the problem. Okay, this is one scenario. Another scenario is that you are 0% the problem, and they are 100% the problem. So on the one hand, we have 100% you. On the other hand, we have 100% them. If we do this mathematically, this means we've got 2 options out of 101 options. Because it's from 0 to 100, so 1 to 100, that's 100, plus the 0, it's 1. In other words, this is a 50, what is it? There we go, this is why I'm, no, I got this completely wrong, this is why I'm tired. It's 1 out of 50.5. That's the probability. So it's 1 out of 50.5? Yeah, 1 out of 50.5. It's 1 out of 50.5 that it's one of these two. It's 1 out of 101 that it's entirely you the problem. Okay? It might be, just not really plausible. So, if it's not entirely you the problem, it's partly you. Maybe. Partly you could be somewhere along here. So, mostly you, but not entirely you. Maybe. It might be somewhere here, it might be somewhere there. Now, if we visualize this a bit differently, we would have part of the problem is attributed to you, another part is attributed to the other person, which seems, X%, and this seems roughly plausible, Y%. And the total of X and Y is 100. Now, here's the question. If we only took your part, and the other person did everything they could to avoid it being a problem, would you still have a problem? So let's imagine, so I don't know, of course, your situation. Let's imagine, I'll touch upon this, okay. Let's imagine a situation, you have a couple, and both people have a bit of a, let's say, neither person is easy to get along with. If one person did everything they could to get along with the other, would things work out better? Well, yeah, surely. Doesn't mean it's sustainable, but it would work out better. The question here would be, has the other person contributed anything to making the situation worse? If they've contributed anything, then it's not entirely you the problem. Probably you've contributed more than nothing. Okay. Take responsibility for what you've contributed. Take full responsibility for what you've contributed, but not 1% more. Take your part. Hey, I'll tell you a story. I had a bad breakup with the toxic person to be grateful to, who sort of put me on the track to learn about this. And after the breakup, I was able to get, long story, but able to get her on the phone. This was about 5.5 years ago, 2017. 5.5 years ago. And on the call, I just thought, what I want to do is I want to say what I'm grateful for. And I want to apologize for the things that I think I did wrong. Just want to get off my chest. Clean slate. So, in this case, here, this is me, and this is her. In this case, I wanted to say thank you for all the good things she did, and I want to say sorry for all of the things I did wrong. So I did that. I knew that I had done quite a few things right, not enough, and I was pretty clear about the things she had done wrong. So, but I focused, I'm grateful for this, and I'm sorry about this. That's it. And she said something like, that's very moving. Is there anything you'd like me to apologize for? I was really taken back. And to that I just said, listen, if you feel there's anything you'd like to apologize for, then if you want to get anything off your chest, anything you want to tell me, then just go ahead. Her face went completely blank. I'm like, I don't know. She had no idea what to apologize for. The list was long. The list was very, 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 very long. She had no idea. She had no gratitude, and she had no idea what she'd done wrong. This is the mindset of everything's entirely somebody else's fault. It was a mix. I did things wrong. I contributed to making things worse. Absolutely. Always remember, our responsibility, my responsibility, was this part, and limited to it. This bit here was not my responsibility. The stuff she did wrong was not my responsibility. It was her choice. All of it was her choice. No one forced her to. The stuff I did wrong, some of the things were in reaction to what she did. That was my choice. Nobody forced me to. My responsibility. That's it. It's the only healthy way to live. Take responsibility for what we do wrong. Be grateful for what other people do right. But don't take responsibility for the things that they do wrong. It's their choice. It's their choice. So I hope this is helpful. Remember also, so I'm reading this now. If you're in the situation where you're often apologizing and it's one-sided, you have to ask how sustainable it is. It takes two people to admit, to recognize what they can do better, and if one person assumes that it's only you as to do better, that is tough. If it's very generic, then you know, often the apologies are people telling us what we want to hear. But we have to really think, to what extent is this a problem for you? If it's not a problem, it's going to happen again. And that can be one of the really, really tough things. You know, to like here you mention you take too much ownership of things. You can only own your own stuff. You know, you go out in a restaurant, you bring up a topic, it becomes a fight. You can apologize for bringing the topic up. That doesn't justify the other person breaking the glass, or shouting, or losing their temper, or hitting you, or storming out. It's their choice. We can make a mistake, and the price ought to be, do we really have to talk about this now? Seriously? That's not cool. Like, yeah, you're right. Bad timing. I apologize. End of it. Remember, also, if we're looking at, let's do another graph. Things are neutral, things are negative, and things are positive. For most of us, when we start entering negative territory, we want to get back up. So one of us is pulling to try to raise back up, to try to, correct the trajectory and get back up. But if you see someone who keeps pulling down or finding excuses to pull down or never pulls back up, don't assume they want to pull back up. See who's doing the heavy lifting to try to get the situation back to being better, and see who is putting on the handbrake. Remember, if someone is putting on the handbrake, that's not the actions of somebody who wants things to get back up. So you can try doing the heavy lifting, but if they're doing it with a handbrake on, you should know that they're putting on the handbrake and decide if that's working for you. I think that's pretty important to remember. You can add more questions if you like. Yeah, I think so. One of the questions here with the problem is to consider to what extent to what extent are we each contributing to the problem? If the other person is stating, well, the extent is very simple. It's 100% you and 0% me. Just from a probabilities point of view, that makes no sense. Statistically, it makes no sense. It shows a completely unhelpful mindset that's going to be very unsustainable. So if it works for you, continue. But, if the other person's being unreasonable, you can explain to them once or twice. But if they don't want to see it, then, these things don't get better with time, unfortunately. Yeah. So I just wanted to tap on this because Akina wrote a few very nice things, and also, don't beat yourself up, you deserve to be happy. I'd qualify this in the sense that, hi UNA, yeah, alive. It was completely improvised. So I did that about 30 minutes before going live. Sorry about that. Oh, and by the way, if people haven't signed up, look me up on Telegram, because on Telegram I do warn people when I'm going to go live. So I've got a channel there. There are a handful of people who've signed up, and sometimes I post just audio messages because I think of something. It's not the right format for a live stream, but look me up on Telegram. So back to this quickly. You deserve to be happy. I'd like to qualify that. Yes, in the absolute. And at the same time, it's something we need to create. And happiness, which is one of the, where do we have it? There we go. Happiness, one of the 7 emotions, joy. The function of happiness is, there we go. The function of happiness is to tell us that we're in the right direction. The function of happiness or joy is to tell us we're doing something right. Happiness is what we feel when we're producing meaning, when we're contributing to something. Then we feel joy. It's a way to motivate us to continue to keep doing the right thing. So, do we deserve it? Yes and no. We all have the ability to feel it. It's great if we do, and we can only get it if we do something to create it. Do you see what I mean in terms of the nuance? Yes, we all deserve to be happy. I wish for everyone to be happy, and the way to be happy is by creating the conditions where happiness can emerge, because we find meaning, because we share things with other people, because we do something meaningful with our life. That's when we feel happiness, and happiness comes in small glimpses. By the way, I highly, highly recommend the book called The Happiness Hypothesis by a chap called Jonathan Haidt. Jonathan Haidt is a fantastic psychologist at one of the New York universities. The Happiness Hypothesis talks about different philosophies about happiness, what we can learn actually about happiness from psychology. Fantastic book, and it's a great way to be. It's a great way to be learning about that. Oh, you didn't get notes on Telegram? Okay, well, that could be just the way Telegram is functioning. So I'd like to share with you one story, and then I'll probably end the live stream. It's a bit improvised. So the story is really, I find, quite hilarious. So many years ago, when did it start? I met this chap in, I think, 2010 or 2011 at a friend's wedding. And Oh yeah, so the book, John, let me just share this because I think it's important that I'll tell the story. Here we go. Jonathan Haidt. There we go. Jonathan Haidt, Happiness Hypothesis. Fantastic book. That's where I got the image of the ride in the elephant from. Really good book. And I really like these positive books. So, anyway, back to the story. So I met this chap at a wedding, I think 2010? Something like that, 2009, 2010. At this wedding, a friend was getting married, and there's a couple that shows up late. And she's quite attractive, but you can see they've had a fight. And he's got this really sulky, grumpy face. His nose is twisted. It's a very strange look. He's dressed very informally for a wedding, wearing jeans and an open shirt. And they spend the whole time sulking. Like they walk in, you can feel like they're trying to get attention. And so that's happening during the daytime. In the evening, there's the dinner, get together. At one point, I'm serving. The guy getting married asked me to take photos. I was taking photos. I was talking to everyone. At one point, I go to get food. The woman talks to me a bit, and this guy shows up and sort of puts himself between us to make sure I can't talk to her. But anyway, we get along. We share some jokes. He also speaks English. It wasn't a French-speaking setting. We get along. We talk about having brunch together, the three of us. But then 1 week later, he shows up alone because it turns out that they broke up and he's already trying to chase the waitress. Lo and behold, we get to know each other, become friends, quite close friends, for a long time. And at one point he starts getting really, really unpleasant. He's the guy I mentioned in another video, the guy who shows up for brunch. At the brunch, he's 45 minutes late. Me and another friend had been waiting. We got tired of waiting, so we just ordered food. Instead of just showing up and getting food and sitting down, he stands there wearing a jacket, being upset that we were eating, when we could, of course, have been upset that he was 45 minutes late. He didn't warn us, and he's being rude. And he storms off and just shrug it off. I think it's one of the last times I saw him, fortunately. Now, my friend stayed in touch with him, and I just heard this really, really funny news. So the guy claims to be an architect. It turns out for the longest time, he never qualified as an architect. So he was some assistant, whatever, but he claimed to be an architect genius. Done loads of plans, prepared loads of competitions. It turned out his plans were pretty much never selected, as far as I can make out. When I saw his website, the only buildings that had been built, somebody else had done the plans and he'd worked on it, and the things he'd done had never, well, there were no photos of anything being built, so I conclude that they never were built. This person was, there's a long story. Oh, he was the guy also whose daughters were in Australia, claimed he couldn't call them because it was too expensive. I told him about Skype being very cheap. He didn't believe me, so I showed him the proof, and instead of being happy that he could call his daughters for cheap, he was furious. Okay. Very, very helpful mindset. Now it turns out he's been fired from yet another job because he's impossible to work with. At one point he started his own firm. First thing he did was he tried to sue one of his biggest clients, which is a massive firm. And of course they're like, you can sue us, but we've got deeper pockets for lawyers' fees than you do, so whatever. Out of a job. He was living in a hotel because he couldn't afford rent. So you live in a hotel? Like, how's that going to work out? The hotel kicked him out. He had nowhere to go. And he's been scrounging, trying to stay at some friends' places. Oh, actually, another thing. Before that, I missed that part. Before that, he called up this friend and some other people and said, I'm at the airport, I'm leaving for good. You can come to the airport, it's the last time you're going to see me. I'm going back to Australia. It's the right place for me. So my friend crosses town in an emergency, shows up at the airport. There are like 3 or 4 of them, the last people who still talk to this idiot. And that's it. It's the goodbyes. So they say goodbye. He gets on the plane. And they sort of go, okay, well, that's that. He's off. Good luck to him. And 4 days later, he gets a call going, I'm back in Switzerland. Australia wasn't for me. You go, you're supposed to be leaving your life behind and taking a new point, and you lasted 2 days? Seriously? Like, it takes you 2 days to get there. Like, what the hell did you do? You got off the plane and came back? And you're spending your money on a plane ticket just to go around the world? Like, what is wrong with you, idiot? So my friend was the real friend, the good person, was going, I don't understand why he did it. I can't tell. Probably expected people to beg him to stay and make drama and say you can't do it. And everyone's like, just okay. You're a grown adult. You're a grown adult in your 40s. You want to hop on a plane and go and live somewhere else? Good luck. Stay safe. What else can we say? Good luck to you. You're an adult. Though he doesn't act like one. So anyway, went off to Australia, came back 4 days later, didn't have a place to stay, was living in a hotel, got kicked out of the hotel, and now he's trying to stay at his friends. And pretty much all of his friends have got families and children. And yeah, that's a good one. Exactly. Can't afford to call Australia, but he can fly then back to exactly. So ridiculous. And of course, none of the friends go, allow him to stay. Why would you want someone to stay when you don't know when you can get rid of them, when they're annoying, when they have a cannabis habit, when they have a adult movie habit, and inconsequential relationships with random people habit? Like, you wouldn't want to do that. So we spoke about it, and he goes, well, what's he going to do? And my point there was, he's got plenty of options he doesn't want to take. Plenty of them. He can go to pretty much any country in the world, find a youth hostel, and say, let me clean your toilets. Let me wash your dishes. Let me do something. And just let me stay in a bunk bed in the dorm room. He can do that wherever he wants. It's manageable. It's cheap. Sure, it's not glamorous, but if that's what you need to get yourself off the ground, you can do it. He can get a job at McDonald's or at Starbucks. It's not glamorous, but at least it pays. But he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to. And he's waiting for people to help him out. And it seems like all of his friends are fed up. It's understandable. So my friend was saying, well, I don't know what to do. Like, why would you do anything? He put himself in this situation. He's looking for other people to help him out, probably to give him money, probably to allow him to stay somewhere rent-free. Why would you do that? There are options. Why would you not figure out, especially if you're supposed to be an architect, figure out a way where someone is willing to give you money for something you're willing to do to contribute to something? Like, why would you not do this? Well, probably because he wants to be a victim. Probably because he doesn't like working, or he resents the fact that he could work. But it's a classic case of the idiot shooting themselves in the foot and being surprised. Now, you can shoot yourself in the foot, but don't be surprised when it hurts. And then, of course, the friends wanting to chip in to help him and prevent him doesn't do anyone favors. And I've been in that situation where someone is shooting themselves in the foot and you want to help them not shoot themselves in the foot, and therefore you overstretch. Doesn't work. We can protect children. Don't protect adults. Otherwise, they don't learn. It's one of the things, actually, I haven't published it, but I did. I probably should do another one. A rant about how we should stop disrespecting narcissists. Just treat people like adults. They don't act nice, say so. They don't like the fact that you tell them they don't act nice, well, stop telling them and just disappear. If we don't get along with people, and if they're unpleasant to be around, why force it on ourselves? Not sure it makes sense, not sure it's doing them a favor, and it also deprives them from simply the ability to get their life back on track. I don't know if they can, but if there's any hope that they can, then maybe don't deprive them of this possibility. And if there isn't, then don't, if you're in the water, don't go close to the drowning man who wants who doesn't want to drown alone. It's not very wise. If they don't want to be saved, that's something that you do. When you're underwater and someone's drowning, the first thing you do is you make them understand, if you want to drown, you're drowning alone. If you panic, you're going to drown alone. I'm here to help you, but you're not going to pull me down with you. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I think that's an important metaphor to bear in mind. So there we go. That's actually been about an hour, I think. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your patience. It's been a long time since I posted something, but like I said, I've been quite busy. Let me know in your comments, in the comments, if you have any questions. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope all is good. And yeah, I will speak to you soon. Thank you so much for joining. Bye. I just let it run for a few more seconds, otherwise I know when it cuts off, you lose the last moments.